Good morning, Shana Tova, and as we say during this time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Gamar Chatima Tova. Our warmest wishes to all who are sharing this service with us via the live stream in hopes that we will all be inscribed for blessing in the Book of Life. These are unusual, unprecedented, and challenging times in which we have all been living for the past many months. Thankfully, we have the technology available to us, at least to be able to share these High Holy Day services together, knowing that hundreds and hundreds of our congregational family are all watching and spiritually sharing these services together when we are not able to do so in person. Please know that our services have been pre-recorded so that we are able to provide for you as much of the music, liturgy, and spirit that is as familiar as if you were sitting here in the sanctuary, and doing so while still observing the necessary protocol to ensure our safety and well-being. So although at times it might appear to you as if we are not following the guidelines, trust that we are indeed, given the fact that our sanctuary is empty and those participating are doing so in a fashion and at all times. While I will be referring to the page numbers in our prayer book for all of you to follow along, I will leave it up to you to decide whether or not you wish to stand at any time during the service or remain seated throughout if you prefer. I do encourage everyone to read or sing along as you wish, and to minimize any distractions that might interrupt you during the service so you can fully focus on the spirit of our worship. I also wish to extend my heartfelt gratitude to my colleagues, members of our temple staff, our musicians, our lay leadership, and the numerous underwriters who have all made it possible for us to experience the beauty of our virtual High Holy Day services this year. We now open our morning service and taking up our prayer books and turning to page 178 for the Baruch Hu, for the call to worship. Page 180. In love you bring light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artist, all of them wrought with wisdom. The whole earth is teeming with life. Awestruck by the universe, work of your hands, let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lights. May you shine a new light on Zion, and may we soon be privileged to share in that light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights. We continue now on page 186.
Adonai צווך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 194. From Egypt you redeemed us, Adonai our God, and from the slave house you set us free. For this the people who felt your love exalted you, and the ones you found precious sang hymns of praise, blessing and thanks to the living God who reigns forever, high and exalted, inspiring wonder, who humbles the proud and raises the lowly, who frees the captive, redeems the oppressed, and sustains the poor. God responds to the cry of our people, their prayer in time of need. Sing praise to God Most High, most blessed source of blessing, as Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang this joyous song to you. We continue now, turning in our prayer books to page 198 for the Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agit tehillatech. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imachot, U'mevii geula livnei v'neihem, L'ma'an shemo be'ahava. Zachrenu l'chaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodbenu b'sefer ha'chaim, l'ma'ancha Elohim chaim. Melech ozer u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Amen.
We continue now on page 209. Page 209. Today we call it by its rightful name, a day of dread, Norah ve'ayom, unwelcome visitor, for we want to live in a sunny world where God is love and all endings are happy. But the drumbeat sounds and the words tumble down, and even the angels tremble with fear. For all things are judged, and all things will pass, and life ends in a heartbeat, and death knows our name. At the start of the year in the season of truth comes the day of remembrance, for all we forget and all we deny. And we fall on our knees in the depths of our hearts, for we know that the bell tolls for us. The words are old and the language was theirs, but the call is real and the message is ours. Take hold of your life while you still have the chance, for your story will end, and it might be this year in a way you don't know. Take hold of your life, make things right while you can, and don't miss the call of the day of dread.
Oh,
And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah, a still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you, like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds. You decide destiny. You inscribe judgments. On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from the world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. Page 218. We sanctify your name in the world as celestial song sanctifies you in realms beyond our world, in the words of your prophet.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech haaretz kevoto.
God of strength who gives us strength, God of might who gives us might, how magnificent the signs of your being throughout the earth.
Baruch kevod Adonai b'mekomo.
Our God is one, Avinu and Malkeinu, sovereign source of life and liberation, revealing with mercy to all who live, I am Adonai, your God.
Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Zion, Ledor vador.
Ledor vador nagid godlecha, we will teach your greatness, Ledor vador, from generation to generation. And to the end of time, we will affirm your holiness. Our God, your praise shall ever be on our lips, for your power is boundless, sovereign, and holy. We continue now on page 244. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, our God, divine presence, whose path our ancestors walked. Bless us now with words first bestowed on Israel in the time of Moses and Aaron, the threefold blessing given us through Torah that joins our hopes with theirs.
Adonai, ve'yishmerecha.
We continue now with Avinu Malkeinu and our Torah service, turning in our prayer books to page 252. Page 252. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu, Va'al Olaleinu V'Tatenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Never V'Cherev V'Ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tzaru Mastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chodenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Malei Aleinu Mibirchotecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aven Keren Mishchecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption.
Avinu Malkeinu, Na'al Tashidenu Reikam Milfanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kabel Rachamim V'Ratzon Et Tefilatenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh Imanu L'Ma'an Shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us as befits your name.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aseh L'Mancha In Lo L'Manenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours.
Avinu Malkeinu, Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata.
Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign.
Avinu Malkeinu, P'tach Sha'arei Shamayim L'Tfilatenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Chus V'Rachem Aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice. Treat us with tender compassion.
Avinu Malkeinu, Konenu Va'anenu, Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Aseh Imanu, Tzedakah V'Chesed, V'Hoshitenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu v'aneinu, ki ein manu ma'asim, yaseh imanu,
Adonai, Adonai, El Rahum V'Chanun. Adonai, Adonai, God compassionate, gracious, endlessly patient, loving, and true, showing mercy to the 1,000th generation, forgiving evil, defiance, and wrongdoing, granting pardon.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah Shemo. Gadlu Adonai iti, unromema Shemo yachtav. Lecha Adonai hagedula, hagevura,
We continue now on page 266, with the reading of Torah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach li'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem, rashechem shiftechem, ziknechem v'shotrechem, kol ish Yisrael. Tapechem nishechem v'gercha, asher b'kerev machanecha, mechote v'techa, ad shoye memecha, leovrecha, bivrit, Adonai Elohecha uvalato, asher Adonai Elohecha koret imcha hayom.
Leman hakim orcha hayom lo la'am, v'hu yeheh lacha, le'lochim ka'asher diber lach, v'ka'asher yashno la'avotecha, lavracham, la'itzkak, u'yela'akov. V'lo etchem lavadchem, anochi koret et habrit hazot, va'et ha'alah hazot. Ki et asher yashno po imanu omed hayom, lifnei Adonai Eloheinu, va'et asher enenu po imanu hayom.
We continue with verse 11 on page 267. Ki ha-mitzvah hazot, asher anochi mitzavcha hayom, lo nifleti mimcha, velo rikakecha hi. Lo v'shamayim hi lemor mi ya'aleh lanu. Shamayma v'yikakecha lanu, v'yashmienu otavina asena. V'lo me'aver layam hi, lemor mi ya'aver lanu. El aver hayam v'yikakecha lanu. V'yashmienu otavina asena. Ki karov elecha, hadavar me'od, b'fivcha u'velvavcha la'asoto.
ראה נתתי לפניך היום את החיים ואת הטוב ואת המוות ואת הרע. אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך, ללכת בדרכיו ולשמור מצוותיו וחוקותיו ומשפטיו, וחיית וררית וברכך אדוני אלוהיך בארץ אשר אתה בא שמה לרשת. ואם יפנה לבבך ולא תשמע ונידקת והשתחווית לאלוהים אחרים ועבדתם.
הגדתי לכם היום כי אבות תאבדון, לא תאריכון ימים על האדמה אשר אתה עובר את הירדן לבוא שמה לרשתה. העידותי לכם היום את השמיים ואת הארץ, החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך, הברכה והקללה, ובחרת בחיים למען תחיה אתה וזרעך לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך, לשמוע בקולו ולדבקה בו, כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך לשבת על האדמה אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב לתת לכם.
You stand this day, all of you, in the presence of Adonai your God, your tribal heads, elders, and officials, every man, woman, and child of Israel, and the stranger in the midst of your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the one who draws your water, to enter into the covenant of Adonai your God, and the oath that Adonai your God makes with you this day, to establish you as God's people and to be your God, as promised to you and sworn to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And not with you alone do I make this covenant and this oath, but with each one who stands here among us this day in the presence of Adonai our God, and with each one who is not here among us this day.
We continue at the bottom of page 267. For this mitzvah, which I command you this day, is neither beyond you nor far away. It is not in heaven, causing you to say, "Who will go up to heaven on our behalf? Get it for us, and let us hear it, that we may do it." And it is not across the sea, causing you to say, "Who will cross the sea on our behalf? Get it for us, and let us hear it, that we may do it." No, this is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you can surely do it. Behold, this day I place before you life and well-being, death and hardship, in that I command you this day to love Adonai and walk in the ways of your God, to observe the mitzvot, laws, and judgments, so you may live and flourish, blessed by Adonai your God in the land that is about to be yours. But if you turn away, refusing to listen, and going astray, bow down to other gods and serve them, I tell you now, you will perish. Yes, you will perish, and you will not last long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. This day I call heaven and earth to witness regarding you, life and death I have set before you, blessing and curse. Choose life so that you and your children may live, by loving, obeying, and staying close to Adonai your God. For God gives you life and length of days to dwell upon the land that Adonai swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe Lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai bi'ad Moshe. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai yai lai lai lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai yai lai yai lai.
We continue on page 275. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nviim tovim, v'ratza b'devrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, Habocher b'Torah, u'Moshe avdo, u'Yisrael amo, u'Vinviei ha'emet v'tzedek.
Page 277. Cry from the death, says God. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Tell my people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily, as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what it is right and has not abandoned God's law. They say of me the right way, eager for God's nearness. They say, why did we fast and you do not see it? We afflict ourselves and you do not know it. Because even on your fast day you think only of desire, while oppressing all who work for you. Because your fasting is filled with strife and with callous fist you strike. No, your fasting this day will not lift up your voice before heaven.
Is this the fast I desire, a day to afflict body and soul? Bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes? Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is not this the fast I desire, to break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved? It is not to share your bread with the hungry and to take the homeless poor into your home, and never to neglect your own flesh and blood? Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal, your righteous one leading the way before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind.
Then, when you call, Adonai will answer. And when you cry, will respond, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness, and your night become bright as noon. Adonai will guide you always. Slake your thirst in parched places, give strength to your bones. You shall be like a well-watered garden, an unfailing spring. From you they will rebuild ancient ruins, lay foundations for ages to come. And you shall be called the one who mends the breach and brings back the streets for dwelling. If you cease to trample Shabbat, stop pursuing your affairs on my holy day. If you call Shabbat a delight, the holy day of Adonai honored, and if you honor God by not doing his business or speaking of everyday matters, then shall you take pure delight in Adonai. I will lift up your journey on earth to the highest of places and nourish you from the heritage of your father Jacob. For thus spoke Adonai.
Page 280. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol ha'olamin, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'neiman, ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'makayin, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah, v'al ha'avodah, v'al ha'naviim, v'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, limchila v'lislicha, u'lecha para, lechavod u'ltifaret, al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, u'mavarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha, b'fi chol chai tamid, le'olam va'ed, u'devarcha emet v'kayim la'ad, baruch atah Adonai, melech mokel v'soleach la'avotenu, v'la'anot amo bet Yisrael, u'ma'avir ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana, melech al kol ha'oretz, mekadesh Yisrael, v'yom ha'kippurim.
Our service continues on page 286. God of holiness, we hear your message. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. God of freedom, we hear your charge. Proclaim liberty throughout the land. Inspire us through your teachings and commandments to love and uphold our precious democracy. Let every citizen take responsibility for the rights and freedoms we cherish. Let each of us be an advocate for justice, an activist for liberty, a defender of dignity, and let us champion the values that make our nation a haven for the persecuted, a beacon of hope among the nations. May our actions reflect compassion for all people, within our borders and abroad. May our leaders and officials embody the vision of our founders to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity.
We pray for courage and conscience as we aim to support our country's highest values and aspirations, the hard-won rights that define us as a people, the responsibilities that they entail. We pray for all who serve our country with selfless devotion in peace and in war, from fields of battle to clinics and classrooms, from government to the grassroots. All those whose noble deeds and sacrifice benefit our nation and our world. We are grateful for the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that our founders ascribed to you, our Creator. We pray for their wisdom and moral strength, that we may be guardians of these rights for ourselves and for the sake of all people, now and forever.
We continue on page 288. You are high above the nation, states, and peoples. Rock of Israel, the one who has saved us and preserved us in life. Bless the state of Israel, first flowering of our redemption. Be her loving shield, a shelter of lasting peace. Guide her leaders and advisors by your light of truth. Instruct them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who build and protect our holy land. Deliver them from danger. Crown their efforts with success. Grant peace to the land, lasting joy to all her people. And together we say, Amen.
Ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu. A precious teaching I have given you, my Torah, do not forsake it. A tree of life to those who hold it fast. All who embrace it know happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness. All its paths are peace. Take us back, Adonai, let us come back to you. Renew in our time the days of old. Page 296. Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong. Page 305. We focused inward, narrowing our vision. We were preoccupied with ourselves. We turned our backs on the poor and defenseless. We were contemptuous of the weak. We tolerated violence against children, neglect of the old, exploitation of the innocent. We told ourselves there was nothing we could do. We wasted the resources of the earth. We denied our responsibility and put it out of our minds. We kept silent when we should have spoken out. We gave in to cynicism and despair. We sought entertainment instead of enlightenment. We were lazy, indifferent, and callous. We forgave ourselves too easily for our failures. We forgot that we always had a choice.
Good afternoon, Shana Tova, Gamar Hatima Tova. It is really good to be here with you today, albeit in this very unusual way, in this very unusual high holiday season that we're having together. I have been thinking a lot lately, and perhaps you have too, of this time last year when many of us had the opportunity to spend time together in the sanctuary. And I've especially been thinking about Kol Nidre, when many of us heard Rabbi Shpeen deliver a pretty remarkable sermon. His topic was grief, and particularly anticipatory grief, in relation to the themes of Yom Kippur. He discussed the ways that knowledge of our own mortality can remind us to live well and with kindness. He also discussed some of the ways that we can support one another through grief and hard times. In the years since that day, as our world has shifted in ways previously unimaginable, I have thought about his words frequently. Maybe you have too. We have had so many opportunities this year to reflect on the fragility and uncertainty of life and the fragility and uncertainty of our world. Too many opportunities. In a good year, the anticipatory grief of Yom Kippur serves as a radical break from routine. This year, for many of us, it may feel more like a continuation or intensification of daily life. We know, perhaps this year more acutely than in some other years, that the answer to the haunting question, who will live and who will die, is we will live and we will die. We just don't know when or how. We observe Yom Kippur today in the shadow of that uncertainty. The poet Emily Dickinson, herself no stranger to personal and collective hardship, had this to say about times like ours in a poem she wrote in the midst of the Civil War. Her poem began, "We grow accustomed to the dark when light is put away." She described the way that a person stepping outside of a home on a dark night without stars, maybe especially on a country road or somewhere else quiet, slowly adjusts to what they're seeing, the absence of any light to guide them. And she went on to write, "A moment we uncertain step for newness of the night, then fit our vision to the dark and meet the road erect. Either the darkness alters, or something in the sight adjusts itself to midnight, and life steps almost straight." Yom Kippur, with all its mentions of mortality, is fundamentally about stepping into life, however long or short it is, whatever it may hold. And we step into life not in spite of darkness, not in spite of uncertainty, and not in spite of pain, but because just like our vision can adjust to darkness, our minds and our hearts can as well. The world at midnight will never be the world at daybreak, but it can become navigable, especially when we walk together. There is a midrash about shofar, the piercing sound of our season, that goes like this. To what is the blowing of the shofar comparable? To a city that was overtaken by a battalion of soldiers. In the city, there was one old man who warned everyone about what was happening, and everyone who heard him was saved. The striking part of this midrash is that when the story starts, the battalion, representative of collective sin and its destructive potential, is already in the city. Probably we can imagine the old man was not the only one who saw the battalion enter. Other people must have seen it too, and perhaps some were even impacted by its early violence. These other people may not have been able to speak up, or maybe they did speak up, but were not heard. But the old man's warning, the sound of the shofar, alerted everyone who heard it to the danger they were already in. They were able to save themselves and one another because they had become more aware of their world, or in the language of this season in the Jewish calendar, more awake to their world. There are moments in history like this, in which societies that have long been mired in a particular type of injustice begin to wake up to that injustice, usually because of the hard work of many generations of activists, many generations of shofar blowers. And in waking up, societies begin to change. This summer was one of those moments with regards to racial equity in our country. Certainly not the first moment, but an important moment as we collectively reckoned with violence and injustice, and systemic racism that have been with us all along. Just like in the parable, there were already many people in our community, our Beth Emeth community, and in our country who knew well about this violence and were working to change it. They saw the battalion enter a long time ago. But this summer, as our nation mourned the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Daniel Prude, and too many others, and as we reflected on generations of violence against people of color in this country, something shifted. And now more of us are awake. Inside of our reform movement, the events of this summer have also amplified a conversation that is already several years old about the importance of making our communities truly welcoming to and equitable for Jews of color and non-Jewish people of color. In a 2017 biennial resolution that spurred a number of programmatic commitments on local and on national levels, our reform community committed itself to working against systemic racism and for racial justice. And we made this commitment both inside of our communities and beyond our walls. These were some of the words of the resolution. The Talmud states, Kol Yisrael Arabim ze bazeh. All of Israel is responsible for one another. Our deep sense of responsibility to one another also compels us to pursue racial justice for the sake of our own multiracial community. This includes people who identify as Black Jews, Asian American Jews, Latino Jews, biracial and multiracial Jews, and others. It also includes members of our community who are people of color who are not Jewish. The resolution went on to emphasize that greater efforts must be made to center the voices and leadership of Jews of color in our synagogues. And then the resolution said, for Jews who do not identify as people of color, the pursuit of racial justice is equally essential. We have seen how anti-Semitism sits at the core of white supremacist ideologies that put Jewish communities and communities of color, as well as people who fit into both groups, at risk. This reminds us that we will ultimately find freedom from discrimination and injustice when all people experience the same liberation. This resolution spurred a lot of really wonderful work at local synagogues around the country and on the national level. That work has happily been well documented, and especially after this summer, well publicized. You may have already seen some of the articles, workbooks, and toolkits for individuals and communities working on anti-racism that are available on reformjudaism.org as well as other Jewish communal websites. And if not, after Yom Kippur, I hope you will take some time to explore them. We will be posting them to the Beth Emeth Facebook page and to our website. You may also be involved already in inclusion and equity work in myriad other ways, or it might be newer to you. No matter what, moving forward from today, we have the tremendous opportunity to continue the work of building a more just and equitable community and a more just and equitable society together. So, this is a moment of possibility. But for many of us, in a variety of ways, it may also be a moment of challenge. In any situation in which a community, let alone a country, takes up the question, how can we be more equitable than we are right now? The question itself can be intimidating to consider. If we don't feel fully comfortable in a space and we tell other people, how will they react to us? And if we do feel comfortable, but we learn that other people in our community don't always feel the same way, what might this mean about us? And what if we learn that we have hurt someone, even if we did not mean to? It is precisely when we experience these types of fear that we most need to embrace difficult conversations and listen without reactivity to what the people with whom we are in community tell us about their lives. But this is often easier said than done. Luckily, it is to precisely this challenge that the Vidue, a central component of our Yom Kippur liturgy, speaks quite directly. The Vidue is a collective confession in two parts. First, we recite an alphabetical list of one-word sins, and then we launch into longer sentences. Al chet shehatanu lefanecha bezadon uvishgaga. For the sins we have committed on purpose or by mistake, we ask forgiveness. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'dibor peh. For the sins we have committed with the words of our mouth, we ask forgiveness. And so on. It is, as we have already experienced twice this Yom Kippur, a long litany. The Vidue is important to any discussion of racial justice for several reasons. In its insistent use of the we voice, the sins we have committed, it reminds us that we are all responsible for one another. Kol Yisrael Aravim ze bazeh. Additionally, the Vidue is a list of verbs, not nouns. We say that we have sinned, not that we are sinners. On Yom Kippur, we are not apologizing for what we are. On Yom Kippur, we apologize for what we have done. And in so doing, we affirm that we can change and our society can change. This framing can give us the strength we need to hear hard truths, have difficult conversations, and keep building a more just world together. It can help remind us that, as the writer Chris Harrison powerfully expressed, learning about and working for diversity, equity, and inclusion is an act of tshuva, an act of return. This afternoon, our teens will read to us from chapter 19 of the book of Leviticus, which provides instructions for how we can live our lives in a holy way, not just as individuals, but as a community. Leviticus 19 instructs us to take care of the needy in our society, ensure equal access for people with disabilities, uphold fair justice systems, and not stand idly by our neighbor's blood. It teaches us that we must love our neighbor as ourselves. These commandments are punctuated by the words Kiddushim Tihiyu, you all shall be holy. A good life, Torah teaches, a holy life, is something that we must build together. We cannot do it alone. So many people in our community, our country, and our world are working hard to build a holy life together. I am recording these words as our country enters its 5th month of much-needed dialogue on racial equity, led by brave and committed activists. As brave and committed professionals, ranging from medical workers to firefighters to grocery store employees, put their own lives at risk so that we all might live. And as this community, the Beth Emeth family, continues to show remarkable resilience and care for one another, our task after today is to keep going, to keep holding one another in the dark. May we do so with love and with courage. May we do so with open hearts and listening ears, and the knowledge that we can always, always change and grow. Together, our eyes and ears and hearts and minds can adjust to new uncertainties and new challenges. May we work to bring each other blessings that we might be a holy community, a kehila kedosha. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Gamar Hatima Tova.